There are countless ways to get readers excited for your next book. Today on The Writer's Journey, we're digging into all things Kickstarter, the platform that not only gets the word out, but helps you to fund your project. We all know there's more to publishing a novel than just writing the book. Between cover design, editing, formatting, and advertising, it can get expensive quick. MG Herron is here to give us insights into how to navigate Kickstarter. His first campaign was fully funded in under 2 hours. So get your questions ready because we are going live right now. MG Herron, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
Thanks for sharing your time.
2 hours, not 2 days. That's insane.
Yeah, 2 hours. I was pretty blown away, but the first day did really well, and everybody says that the campaign should fund quickly, so that was my goal from the beginning. So I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, you reached that initial goal, and then people weren't done. The backers kept coming, and they're still supporting you. And you've got how many days left?
So I think it's 18 days left. It'll run till September 28th. And Kickstarter has done a bunch of analysis on like their best campaigns, and they look at all the campaigns across Kickstarter. Their advice is generally to run a campaign for less than 30 days. Longer than that, I guess, like people run out of stuff to talk about, kind of sags in the middle. Less than, I'm not sure what their minimum is, but if you don't let it run long enough, it's hard to get the word out. People are busy with life stuff, and there's a certain amount of momentum that is helpful, especially, and we can talk about this in a little bit, but Kickstarter has like recommendations. So for whatever reason, less than 30 days. And so I picked 4 weeks. So we launched it on August 31st and it runs to the 28th.
Well, we're excited to get into Kickstarter, what it is and why you picked it out and how you've made it such a success. But first, I just want to touch in with everyone, see how everyone's Labor Day weekend was. Kalene, how was your Labor Day weekend?
Filled with lit RPG math and other edits and playing video games with my daughter.
Lit RPG math? What is this? What is this thing of which you speak?
So it's everything that you don't see in the lit RPG. So it's like when they have their stats and then, they accomplish quests and they get goals and they get, +2 the strength, right? That has to be added. It all has to be counted and accumulated. Some stats get extra stat bonuses. So you have to make sure to add all those in. So that's what I'm doing. Adding all that in, making sure it's right in the stat sheets.
Keeping track of the math just because you love the readers that much. That's awesome. For Labor Day, I got to go down to Charleston and down south, and I got to see a wedding and go with my boyfriend, and we had a really wonderful time. And then afterwards, I got back, and I've been editing a Orcs in Space, like Orc Marines in space. So if you're a Warhammer fan, if you're like World of Warcraft, but you want that in a novel, it will be published later on through Aethon Books. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a fun ride so far. And Matt, how have you been?
Good. I didn't do much for Labor Day, just kind of hung around here. We did some traveling a couple weeks ago, so I got my travel bug out. So yeah, just kind of hung around, did a little bit of editing on Hidden Relics, and then I was proofing the audiobook of the first book in the trilogy. So that's really fun and exciting. I love listening back to it. Sometimes you're like, oh, did I write that? This feels very strange and awkward, but other times it feels incredible. So that was fun.
Like, wow, my characters are coming to life, my stories are coming to life, and to hear it read by someone else, that must be really thrilling.
Totally. And it's funny because, how he voices the character is never exactly how it sounds in my head, but sometimes it's even better.
So what do you write? How did you get into writing? What do you write? And then how did you decide to kind of get into the Kickstarter game?
Sure. So generally I write sci-fi action-adventure, contemporary or space-based. This is my first space opera series, but my first book was published back in 2015. I self-published it. That was a contemporary sci-fi portal adventure. I have another series called The Gun Files. That's sci-fi mystery. It's kind of like the X-Files meets Men in Black. So sci-fi noir with a detective. It's based in Austin, and I live in Austin, Texas. So that one's a lot of fun to write. And I've always loved space opera. So for this series, I decided to do something a little new and write a space-based adventure. So that's kind of my publishing history. It's been about 6 years since I started self-publishing.
It's always fun to do something new.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, I mean, again, I love this genre. I grew up on StarCraft and Battlestar Galactica and the Dune novels and the Star Wars books. And so I love the genre. It's really fun for me. One of my favorite space opera writers right now is John Scalzi. So big fan of like the Last Emperor book that he just did. That was really good. So I just love space opera. It's one of the genres that I read. And so it seemed a natural fit. I also, with this book in particular, my dad's an Air Force pilot. And so I grew up around pilots. And so I don't know if you've ever seen Battlestar Galactica, but it's about starfighter pilots. And so I thought, oh, this would be fun. I could talk to a bunch of pilots. I have, pretty ready access to aviation experts. And so I used that to help me write this book. And so it was a really fun one for that reason, too. It's kind of personal.
We have questions from the audience. Patricia wants to jump right in. How much prep work did you do prior to the campaign? I haven't done a Kickstarter yet, but I would almost want everything finished and in place prior to trying it. I feel you.
That's a great question. I agree. I would want as much in place as possible. So I originally concepted this story like 3 years ago, but seriously started writing it last year. So by the time the Kickstarter launched, I had one book written, edited, and ready to go. And I had a second book written, and I'm going through the edits of it right now. And then the prequel novella that's part of the campaign, I also had that done. So I basically had 2/3 of the trilogy finished. I also got all the cover art commissioned last year, and had everything ready as far as the design of the books too. So you never want to have to go into a big marketing effort like Kickstarter when you don't have the product ready. So I would suggest do the product first, get everything buttoned up, have a schedule. If you look at the Kickstarter page, it says I'm going to publish the first book in October of this year, the second book in July of next year, and the third book in April of the following year. So this is planned out well in advance. It gives me lots of time to finish editing the second book, writing the third book. And as part of the campaign, we have 2 stretch goals, which have already been achieved for novellas. So I'm going to have to write 2 more novellas, which I'm pumped about. So yeah, I would suggest definitely doing everything well in advance. I had all of the artwork. The things I had to develop for this campaign were the stickers and bookmarks, which were made from the artwork. So I actually ordered those ahead of time. And then there's this t-shirt. So a friend of mine helped me with the t-shirt. We were designing that last month. And then the Starfighter miniature, which I originally wanted to get 3D printed. I started exploring this a couple months ago. But not everything's done yet, but enough is done that I can just feel confident that I can deliver on it. And that's what's important to people on Kickstarter. It doesn't have to be finished, right? A lot of prototypes launch on Kickstarter. Kickstarter actually has a reputation for failed campaigns, which is something I was trying to avoid the stigma of. So the books are done. Readers like seeing that they're done. I could share the sample with them. So yeah, preparation is key. But then I didn't actually start writing the Kickstarter page itself until early August. So I wrote that whole page. I designed the reward tiers. I did all that stuff in about 3 weeks. So the actual page itself is not hard to do and prepare. The prep work, though, is key, especially for books. And if you want to do something like what I did, launching a trilogy, you got to have enough in the bank to do that. Now, I've seen Kickstarter campaigns for one book, so it's not to say it can't be done, but that's what I decided to do for this one.
Now, what all went into your page? And Kalene, should I go ahead and pull it up, do you think?
Yeah,
Or that help? Should do like a little share screen thing.
Do some visual.
Visualization is helpful, yeah. Well, while you pull that up, I can just kind of go into it a little bit. So Kickstarter is basically like one landing page. So you have to write the landing page itself. I think mine's like 3,000 words or something. I tend to be kind of verbose. So I wrote that whole page. The other thing you need are the graphics. So obviously, I don't know if you can see it. If you refresh the page, it should show like a cover image. So it has the 3 books there. And then if you click play on it, there you go. Then if you click play, there's like about a 1-minute video. So I recorded that video. It took me about 2 hours to make and process the video and upload it at the end. I don't really love being on video, so it was the last thing I did. But yeah, so that's there. So you need the cover image, you need the video, you need the copy for the page, and the the copy for the page, for those of you who are not as familiar with marketing, writing, and copywriting as I am, copy just means the words. So the copy on the page is about 3,000 words. You got to tell people what the story's about, what the products are, what state they're in, explain all the rewards, explain all of the risks, and then I decided to include a short bio and some reviews, and of course the sample. So if you click through that, it goes to my site.
And
so
I noticed right at the top there you had an update. So it's definitely something that you don't just put up and then let it run. You have to keep interacting with it. It's like.
Yeah, and you can post updates here once the campaign is live, but that's true. So you can edit the story, which is that first page of copy, while the campaign's running. So each time we get like a major stretch goal, I go in and I update this, and then there's a stretch goals section, and I'll put like unlocked next to one of the stretch goals, so that people who are looking at the campaign for the first time know what we've achieved. And so you can update the story, and you can add new reward tiers, and you can add new add-ons to the campaign as it's running. What you cannot change is the deadline, the funding goal, and the reward tiers once they're sold. So you can edit the reward tiers up until the moment someone buys it. Once someone buys it, it's locked in, and you cannot edit it. And that's just so that people don't buy something and then it gets changed on them, and then it doesn't match what they've bought. So I think it's just trying to protect the users of Kickstarter.
I mean, now you go and you buy something that's like a red something, and they ship you a blue one. You're like,
right? Or like what I thought I ordered, what I got from Wish, right? They're like two very different things. Nobody wants that. So I think they're just trying to protect their customers. And honestly, it hasn't been a big deal. It's been nice to be able to post updates and to edit things as I find, tweaks or typos or whatever.
Now you've published with Athon Books and Podium or Audible before?
Yeah. So my first trilogy, Podium did the audio for. The Gun Files is with Athon and Audible. And then this one I'm going to do all on my own. So I have a bit of a varied publishing background. I also have a nonfiction book that I did with a company called Story Cartel. They have a blog called The Right Practice that's pretty popular. So the Scrivener Superpowers book that I did is with them. So I've got basically like small press, indie, like hybrid, partnership, and this one I'm kind of doing a little bit differently.
So why'd you decide to do it this way with Kickstarter? I can, to help cover your cost, obviously, but why Kickstarter and the way you set up your Kickstarter campaign?
I mean, it's a good question, because I wasn't even sure I was going to do Kickstarter until like June when I decided to do it. I thought about it, but it was kind of intimidating. I was really afraid that it would fail, right? Like if you set a funding goal that's too high, and we've all seen these Kickstarter campaigns where it's like 12,000 goal, 2,000 achieved, deadline in 3 days, like you're not going to make it, and that's really scary. And so, I mean, I guess there are a couple reasons. One of the reasons is I really want to own my publishing future, like my career. And part of that is owning the books. And I've found it a little bit difficult when other people own the audiobooks, for instance, to market them. That's been tough. So, for me, I like having that creative control. I also know my way around the publishing process now. I've spent 6 years in and around indie publishing. So I feel confident that I can, publish and market my books myself. And I just really wanted that creative control, and I wanted the price control of the audio. So all of that together made it seem like a good idea to me. And I have, a little bit of a platform now to launch something like this, whereas I never would have attempted something like this back in 2015 when I started, right? With no audience, it would be hard. Because the one thing that people kept telling me when I started talking to people who have done Kickstarters was you need to drive your own traffic. You need to send your own backers there. Kickstarter will go to bat for you once they see things moving, just like you could kind of compare it to the Amazon algorithms, although there are differences between them, certainly. But they'll start sending backers to you once they see the momentum going in the right direction. But you can't count on that for the start of it, right? Like the launch has to be your audience. And so I felt like I could achieve the goal. And so I set a low goal so that we could bust through it, and it's gone really well. And then once that happened, then Kickstarter started sending people, and you can see in their stats like where the people come from. And so what's cool about Kickstarter is it's really reaching a new audience. It's people that never would have found me before. And so it's a great opportunity to just meet new readers and get my name out there.
And it also kind of solves the problem of the cost flow, the cash flow. There's
True.
so much money that goes into a book while you're creating it. And that can take months or even years to write the whole series, to produce it before you see sales. But let's explain your rewards, how you have that set up and how that can kind of solve some of or address some of that cash flow issues that authors often see.
Yeah. So, I don't know the people who are listening to this, what their level of familiarity with like publishing is. Sometimes people can produce a book for a couple $100. Sometimes people can produce a book themselves, and it's on a spectrum all the way up to books can cost thousands of dollars to produce. And so when I decided to undertake this, I decided that one of the things I was going to undertake for this series was to produce my own audio, and that's pretty expensive too. So you have to think about cover art, editing, post-production in terms of like formatting it. And then of course the audio production itself costs money. So part of the reason that Kickstarter was appealing was just to recoup some of those hard costs. Now keep in mind though, that not all of the money, so Kickstarter takes a total of like 8% or something. There's like a fee and then like processing fees. So there's a little cut off the top there. But then out of the rest of that money, I still have to print books and create the t-shirts and print the models or the miniatures and ship things out. Shipping costs money. So I did a bunch of cost projections. So it's not pure profit, but it still is a really good way to recoup some of the money. And then I can take that money and use it to cover audio production costs, to help market the book. So it puts me in a really great position for the launch of the book on retailers. To do the Kickstarter ahead of time. So definitely recouping production costs was a big part of it, but it wasn't the only thing.
On that note of, the levels that people can buy in at, those are going to cost money. It's like for whatever it is that you have in there. And Corey Gilliam is wondering, how did you determine what to give at each different level? Because
that's a good question.
The end cost is definitely something to keep in mind when you're setting them up.
Yeah. So, if you're running a Kickstarter campaign for the books, what people care about most is the books, right? They want the books. So the way I structured it was I tried to give people at any budget a great value for whatever it was they were buying. So, I know how much it's going to cost me to produce these books. So that's a factor. But more importantly, when you're presenting a campaign like this, you want to make it really appealing. So there are two benefits to readers for buying a book through Kickstarter. One is you get the book early, generally. So most Kickstarter campaigns for fiction books will deliver you the book a week to a month or so ahead of time. So as for being part of the Kickstarter campaign, you're now in the Insiders Club and you get the book early. And that's really fun for readers. The other thing that they benefit from is like the merch and swag. So there's extra stuff that is on top of the books that might be fun for them. And of course, the stretch goals build up the value too. So for each of the like let's say a novella stretch goal, that's going to all the backers. So the better the campaign does, the more value they get out of it. So the benefit again to readers is you get the books early, you get some extra stuff, and oftentimes you get just a really great deal. So the people who back this campaign, if we get to the 10,000 goal, are going to get 3 audiobooks. So if you just bought the $5 ebook, you're going to get an ebook, the original artwork, you're going to get the prequel novella, you're going to get the prequel novella in audio, and you're going to get all 3 books in audio. Ooh. So for somebody who just spends $5, that's a great deal. So the part of the appeal of Kickstarter is this like insider early, great value, and also just being a part of something. So that's kind of what I had in mind as the context for how to design the reward tiers. So when you look at the reward tiers, they go from like just support me for $1 to buy the ebook for $5 to the ebook trilogy, like all 3 ebooks, to then we start getting into paperback and hardback. And then we get to the named bundles. So I have 3 named bundles, and I named them because I'm writing like military, sci-fi, space opera. I named them Lieutenant's Lifeline, Captain's Cause, and Admiral's Ally. So there's these 3 named bundles. And that's where the good stuff comes in. So at those levels, that's where you get a thank you and the acknowledgements. That's where you get the t-shirts and the Starfighter miniatures. And then the highest reward, the Admiral's Allies, was a name a planet or a character in a future MG Herron book. Now, I had to limit that one, right? Because I don't want to deal with 100 names that I have to force into a couple books. So I limited it to 5. And that's another thing that Kickstarter is great for. You could do limited rewards that are, only a finite number. You can also do early bird rewards that close after a certain amount of time. So again, it's making it special for people. And so I tried to make sure that the rewards were jam-packed with way more value than the money you're spending, especially if we hit those stretch goals. Also, that there's something for everybody at every level of budget. So like $1 up to $300. I made sure it was like, I don't remember exactly, but it was like 1, 5, 15, 25, 35, 60, 85, 110. So there's not like a big gap. It's not like we go from a $50 reward to a $200 reward and there's nothing in between. I tried to make sure that there was something for everybody, because people are going to have different budgets and different needs and different like reading habits. Make sure that, we're covering our costs and making a little bit of money, but also that it's just such a good value for them. So.
And for the rewards, as you're building them, so it's like you have the one that's just like, here's $1, I hope you do well. And then you go up to like the $5 one, you get, the sticker and whatever. Mm-hmm. So when you keep going up, do all of the rewards below also be in the other one? So it's like, not only do you get levels 1 through 3, at level 4, you can be added. Okay.
Exactly. So as you go up, you basically get one new thing and all the stuff in the previous tiers. So nobody's ever going to be left out. What I have seen some other Kickstarters where there's like a special like coffee package, or there's a special so there are some different ways to do it. So certainly my way is not the only way to do it. But the way I see most Kickstarter fiction campaigns is as you go up the reward tiers, the next higher one is inclusive of everything before it. And I think that's true of mine.
So what is that going to look like on the other end when you're done the campaign and you're ready to publish? Like, do you have all these names and addresses and stuff like organized so you can ship all this stuff out?
Yeah, I'll have to send them surveys. So Kickstarter has some cool tools where you can send people like backer surveys, what's your name, email, shipping address, all that sort of stuff. So the ebooks and the audiobooks are easy to deliver, right? We can deliver those over email. I could just ask for their email and send it to them a week ahead of time, so they get the books early, and I'll just send it directly to them. Probably use BookFunnel to deliver the ebooks, and BookFunnel also has a fun audio delivery feature that I just got access to. So excited to try that. So I'll be delivering the audiobooks with BookFunnel. They are not paying me to say their name. They're just wonderful. I love BookFunnel.
They're great.
The paperbacks are different though. So for paperbacks, if you just ordered the first book in paperback or hardback, I'll send those out as soon as they're printed. So I think I'm going to be able to deliver them by December, which is what I put in the delivery date. If you bought the trilogy though, obviously you're going to have to wait a little bit because I don't have them all done and they're not going to be published for another 1.5 years. So those will be shipped when the books are done and ready. I did offer people, because I got this question like, oh, I don't want to wait to get my books. Like, can I just get book 1? And so I basically wrapped into the cost of the reward tiers enough money for shipping 1 package, right? So based on the size and the amount of goods you need to package for each reward tier, I built the cost of shipping into it. But if somebody really wants the book early, I'm happy to ship it to them. They just need to, if they're in the US, it's like $5 for shipping. So I'll send them the book early if they want to. But basically, you have to wait till the rewards are done to get them. And it's not that uncommon for Kickstarter to not deliver rewards for a year. So the nice thing is that people on Kickstarter are used to this sort of behavior. In fiction campaigns I looked at when I was studying for this project, I saw that it was typically, like for a trilogy of books, 1.5 years isn't unusual. And of course, if people don't want to wait for their paperbacks or hardbacks, I'll still be sending the ebooks when they're ready. But if they ordered the hardback trilogy, then I'm going to wait till all 3 are ready so that I only have to ship at once.
which is smart.
Yeah,
So you
shipping can get really expensive, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's one of the things, when I was talking to people about doing the Kickstarter, I got a couple like watch out fors, and the big watch out for that I kept hearing with people was like, be careful about shipping. You can really get screwed if you don't calculate your shipping correctly. So, I built in the cost of shipping domestically, and then for international backers, I'm basically going to figure out how much their shipping costs and just send them an invoice for the remainder. And that's also written into the campaign page. So no surprises,
And then BookFunnel, is that a free tool or do you have to subscribe to it?
I think they have a free version, but it's something I pay yearly for ebook delivery. So, if people sign up to my email list, they get sent a couple ebooks. So I use it for that and for sending out art copies, advanced reader copies. But yeah, I think I pay for it, but it's not too much. It's pretty reasonable. It's like $100 a year or something.
Oh, that's
Not too
good.
bad.
All right. DL Young wants to add on to this question about how you chose the levels. Is how did you get the word out, I guess, about your whole Kickstarter campaign and the series coming out? And he notes that, yes, he is stalking you, Matt, LOL.
Hello. Hi. Yeah. Well, we had a conversation about this because it's a good question. Like, how do you drive traffic to a Kickstarter campaign? And I think it's the same way you drive traffic to a book launch. For me, I put all of my effort into the Kickstarter campaign. I'm still going to put a ton of effort into the book launch, but the Kickstarter to, launch and fund the series was the big thing for me. So I did a lot of direct outreach to people. I have a reader group of fans on Facebook that I use. It's not big, but there's a core group of people in there that are fun and really supportive. So they helped get the word out, and then just shared on social media and used my email list. I think I sent a total of like 7 emails in the first week, just to make sure that everybody there saw it. And what's fascinating about email is people think, oh, I'm going to send one email to the list and everybody's going to read it and they're going to know about my book. But that's actually not true. The more emails I sent, the more people read the email. So I used the list, social media, and mainly Facebook. I did try to run like some Facebook ads, but they weren't awesome. Maybe I'm just not that good at it, but I tried it. Yeah. And mostly it was just asking people to spread the word. What's cool about Kickstarter is that it doesn't take a large number of people. Like, you don't need to reach thousands and thousands of people like you do to get on a USA Today bestseller list. You can reach a few hundred and raise all the money you need for your project.
So this is in line with what Tim Kiver had asked ahead of time. He's curious what benchmarks you met to be confident that you could get enough supporters to fund Kickstarter. So it definitely sounds like, you've got that newsletter going, you've got a group dedicated to you as an author going. So what sort of other, authorly benchmarks made you comfortable to do that?
Yeah, if somebody had a really good network of friends and family, I think they could run a small Kickstarter. I don't think you need thousands of people. It certainly helped that I had an email list that was active and that I was using to promote my fiction. I've spent 6 years gathering people into that audience and building that platform. But I don't have like a hard number to give you. I think it's good to have an audience that you can drive there. Again, like, if you don't send people to Kickstarter, they're not going to work with you. They're not going to start recommending your campaign or promoting it in emails if you don't drive enough to get it funded or, close to it fairly quickly. So I would say set your goal low enough that you can achieve it, and based on whatever your platform is. And I've seen fiction campaigns run for $500 that just did amazingly well. They kept their costs low. They promoted it to their core group of fans. Maybe 100, 200 people found out about it in the end, and it was a huge success for them. So, I would just size it according to whatever your audience is. It would definitely be harder to do, though, if you don't have an audience to drive people there, right? If you don't have an email list, you don't have a social following of any kind, you're basically just using your friends and family. So, again, just run the numbers, see what works for you. But for me, I felt confident because I've been doing this for a while. I have at least a core group of fans. And so I kept my goal low to make sure that I didn't fall on my face and just kind of went for it. Just hold my nose.
That kind of answers or addresses Bug Zero's question. What would you tell aspiring authors that are on the fence about doing a Kickstarter? versus other ways of promoting a book. So yeah, someone who hopes to become an author doesn't yet have that fan-based audience. They've got friends and family though. So what do you think about this question?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would have done it as a first-time author, but I think it's possible. It just has to be the right person and the right project with the right appeal, you know.
All stars align, all that.
Yeah, but I would definitely say that, you know, consider it. It doesn't have to conflict with your goals for publishing on retailers, and it can be beforehand. You know, you can get the word out in a lot of ways too. It just depends like how many avenues you have of getting the word out. But I would say more people need to be open to it. What's cool about fiction on Kickstarter is I feel like in the past year or two, it's kind of reached a level where it's almost mainstream now to launch a Kickstarter for an indie project. Like you've got a couple big names playing in there. It's not just, you know, Amanda Palmer's $1 Million campaign from 6 years ago. It's now fiction authors, and the fiction category is very popular, and people are doing projects of all size, from like, you know, $500 funding goals up to $30,000 funding goals. So there's a lot of range in Kickstarter as a new channel. So I would definitely consider it. I think that I was definitely scared of failing, and that was hard to get over. And so if you can get past that, just remember to keep things realistic, then anybody could be successful there.
All right. And he says, one day I want to be as cool as MG.
He's very
Right? You don't need to be that cool.
Well,
Pretty
speaking
cool
of cool,
mustache,
Kalene, do we have a cool read that?
Do we? Oh, there it is.
Yes.
I probably should have scrolled down and read this first. So this is going to be a completely blind read, y'all. Woo-hoo!
Fresh.
All right. This week's book spotlight is on The Relics of the Ancient Space Opera Adventure series by M.G. Herron. Starfighter, you're a go for takeoff. A rogue overmind is on the loose. 1 million souls are at stake. The Solaran Defense Forces make the difficult decision to evacuate the colony of Robochar in order to avoid a direct confrontation. But when Captain Elia Nevers of the Furries gets shot down during the evacuation, his squadron and the admiral in charge of the mission have to think fast to rescue their pilot and escape the system before the Krill overrun the place. Good lord. These names, man! Fighting to survive in hostile territory, Captain Nevers makes a startling discovery. He learns what the rampaging Overmind is really after, and it changes everything. The war, the Solaran Empire's uncertain future, even his perception of ancient history. An extinct species known as the Telos fled the galaxy eons ago. What caused them to vanish in such a hurry? And more importantly, what relics of terrible power did they leave behind? Book 1, Starfighter Down, will be released in October 2021 of Doom.
I love it. And now I'm thinking about what a squadron of furries would look like.
I know. I'm like, that is not how this is pronounced.
Oh, that's so funny.
It'd be super cute.
Good job. They would be adorable.
How is it pronounced? Now I have to know.
The Furies.
Furies. Okay.
Furies.
That's why I said dry. It was a dry read. So furries came out.
I love it. You went with it.
I did. Owned it.
Now, Matt, you mentioned that Kickstarter can open you up to a new audience, and we had a question about that. Ellen Campbell asked, has Kickstarter increased your fan base? Have you lost any fans because of it?
Maybe too soon to tell whether I lost any fans. I guess it's possible. But no, I mean, my fan base has been very engaged in the process. And what's interesting about Kickstarter is once you launch a campaign, you can see the breakdown of the traffic you're driving versus the traffic that Kickstarter's recommendation engine is driving. So unlike Amazon, they're much more transparent about where their Kickstarter backers are coming from. So I would say it's certainly expanded the reader base. There are tons of people who have never heard of me before who are back in the campaign now. So that's pretty exciting.
And do you have any tips on how to hack that? Like how to make your campaign work better on Kickstarter and bring people in?
I'm not sure, but I think busting through the funding goal really helps if you do that quickly. And what happens is they start recommending, like at the bottom of an, like if another author has a fiction campaign and they send an update about their project, in that email at the bottom, there's like 3 other projects that you may be interested in. And so there are spaces in their emails, and there are also spaces like in the fiction category. They also geolocate. So there's on their homepage, there's a projects near you carousel. So because I'm in Austin, when I look at that page, I see my campaign there. They also feature stuff on the homepage, on the fiction landing page, and they have a great search tool. You can go search Kickstarter for anything, and they have awesome filters that allow you to filter by, publishing or by fiction or by magic. And that's actually a filter value in their system. Nice. And so you can see where people come from. You can see whether they come from an email that Kickstarter sent, or they come from Facebook. From one of my Facebook posts, or they come from, anywhere else. I haven't been super active on Twitter, and while I posted the Kickstarter on Twitter, guess how many people came from Twitter?
0?
Goose egg, 0. Yeah, so it just depends. Like I can't rely on Twitter to promote my books, but email and direct outreach and Facebook have been pretty good. And of course, I think, right now it's like roughly 40% of people are driven by Kickstarters. It's 40% new people, which is wonderful. Wonderful.
I mean, who doesn't want more readers?
Exactly.
So how'd you pick the filters that your Kickstarter campaign is in? Does it let you pick magic or space opera or something like that?
So Dean Wesley Smith has a great Kickstarter course that I would recommend to anybody interested. Dean Wesley Smith has like a Teachable account with online lectures. So if you go to deanwesleysmith.com, you'll find his lectures. He just has this free Kickstarter course for people. And he partnered with a guy named Lauren to develop the course. So Lauren is like a Kickstarter expert, and Dean has done like 20 Kickstarters. He's awesome. So go check out the course. There's a best practices document in there that I use. So that was really helpful for me.
All right, so everyone go check out that course if you're interested in learning even more about Kickstarters.
Mm-hmm. And Walt said, I picked Magic Space Opera. Just like that.
That's how I like my space opera. Not quite following the laws of physics, right? A little bit of magic thrown in.
It's not
magic. Definitely. It's sci-fi.
You don't have to explain everything. Star Wars. Oh. Little sneeze there.
God bless you.
So
what other questions do we have?
I was just scanning these because you've answered a few of them. So I'm trying to decide, can we go a little bit deeper on some of them? So it's what steps will you need to take to fulfill the orders? You've kind of touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, again, the books are the most important thing. So I'm going to send the ebooks as soon as I have them, right? Like the week before publication, I'll put them on BookFunnel and I'll email them to people. The physical books are a little different. Like I have to upload them to Ingram and order copies to my house and then package them and then mail them out. So that's, a few extra steps. And then the t-shirts and the miniatures. So the t-shirt design is done. We've gotten quotes from the printer. It's a printer here in town, a local business that we've printed t-shirts at before, not for MG Herron books, but for other stuff. They're great. So we have some nice, soft tri-blend t-shirts. And so we just need to place the order and go pick them up. So that's fun. The Starfighter miniature is a little bit different. So I hired a studio to create the model. And this is so cool. So originally, I wanted to 3D print the miniature because the guy who did my covers, Elias Stern, is an amazing artist, and he does some 3D work in Blender. So he created the Starfighter in his 3D program. And so we used that Starfighter on the stickers, we used it on the covers, and I thought, oh, he's got a 3D file. Let's just go ahead and print it. Well, I learned a lot about 3D printing. Turns out you can't necessarily just take a mesh 3D file and print it. You have to fill it in and color the details. And because he did a lot of detail work after he exported it, the file's just not 3D printed, 3D print ready. So I have a little prototype here. Oh, let me get it.
Ooh, yay, we love visual.
Okay.
Show and tell. Show and tell.
So this is the little Starfighter. You guys know John Bear Ross?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
John printed
he's a friend of the show. Wow.
That's
So
so
John
awesome.
printed this
Go,
for me,
John.
and you can see like it's kind of translucent. Like the resin is really translucent. So these wings are super thin. There's also like, it's just kind of fragile. It like broke a little bit here. You look at the engine, and it's like hollow in there. So John did some work to like make this awesome. But I talked to the guy at the miniature studio, and he basically told me that it would be easier to redo it by hand. So he like models it, I guess, out of clay or something by hand, and he creates like a master. So while I would have loved to 3D print them, it just wasn't meant to be. So I found this guy, and he's going to hand make the Starfighter, and then he uses the master to create a rubber mold, and then he pours the material that you cast the miniature into the mold. So I think it's like resin, or you've seen like pewter miniatures before. They're cast. So we'll have to pick the material and all that stuff. But he's working on that, and I'm hoping that he'll be done with the master in a few days so that we can share it with Kickstarter folks. So that's the one piece that is not finished, but he should be done it soon. And so once I get all the stuff here, then I just have to pack it up in nice looking boxes and send it out.
Wow, so you're
cool.
going old school.
Right?
I was just
Yeah,
telling my daughter about that too, like how you like. She's like, "How did they get so much detail on this thing that's not actually what it is?" And I'm like, "Well, darling, this is how they do it."
People make them. They actually this guy has a whole studio making miniatures, and he said he was even going to make like a little stand for it, so you can like set it on your desktop or use it in war games. So like there's a game called X-Wing with like sci-fi planes. You could actually use this in the game if you want to do like a custom game. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Walt asks, how has your Kickstarter engagement been?
It's been really good. There's a comment section on Kickstarter. I think there's like 17 comments. People, I got one great idea from folks early on, which was, can you add the stickers and bookmarks as add-ons? Because people wanted to buy extra. I've got a bunch of questions about like, are your novellas going to be delivered in paperback or ebook form? Are you, so I've been answering questions. It's been really cool to see. And, like I said, people sharing on Facebook and just emailing me about it has been really fun. So I think it's been good.
And then Kate asks, are you comfortable disclosing the net number that you're looking at right now?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it'll be about 50%. So like 50% will go to my hard costs for creating the miniatures and t-shirts and printing books and shipping, and 50% will be profit-ish.
Because it's like all of your time that went into all of this.
Well, yeah, that's certainly not counting my time. And all the money is going to go into audio production or marketing the book launch on retailers, because I can't forget that. So, in terms of like total profit, from the campaign, like 50%-ish is hard costs and 50% is profit.
But that's a pretty good like end goal. It's like you want to have enough that you can, you've done all this work. You want to make some kind of money to be able to go to the next project, right? And then because that's, if we're just grinding away for nothing, what's the point?
Right. And again, I'm still going to make money on the books once they're on retailers to sell, so I don't need to like make all the money from Kickstarter. Kickstarter is just give it a kickstart. It's not meant to be the end all be all. But
Kickstarter.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's just the beginning. So.
Very nice.
Patricia asks, has anything surprised you? Anything you would do differently on future campaigns?
The things that have surprised me have been like how fast it funded. That's super surprised me. I made the goal low, thinking like, maybe we'll get to $1,000 on the first day. So this is what I was hearing from people I know who have run successful Kickstarters. So like, fund in the first day. If you can fund in the first day, Kickstarter will start working for you. It's like, okay, I could do that. What should my funding goal be? Well, you don't really want your funding goal to be the total amount that you hope to get. You want your funding goal to be achievable, which is why I put like those audiobooks in the stretch goals, right? Because if we only hit the funding goal, then I would be out of pocket a bunch of money because I'd have to produce the audiobooks for them anyway. So anyway, what surprised me was how fast it did and how well it did on the first day. That was really cool to see. So I really appreciate that. All of my friends and fans and family came out to support me. That was awesome. What would I do differently? I would probably do the Kickstarter a lot sooner. or I would wait longer between the Kickstarter and the book launch. So I've basically given myself a week, which is like really cutting it close. I would probably give myself 3 months between when I did the Kickstarter campaign and when the first book came out. And this is just because I still need to plan that launch, and, you know, to do back-to-back launches, like 1 month and then another, is a lot. So just to give myself more breathing room, I would have done the Kickstarter like 3 months in advance. But I put myself in a bind because I put up the pre-order for the first book just to like have it done. And then I was locked into it. I couldn't really change it, because I could probably have pushed it 30 days. I think Amazon lets you push it 30 days at a time twice. So I could have pushed it, but I was like, you know what? Here we go.
Let's do this thing. Yeah, that's definitely one thing that I find myself telling like a lot of new authors. They're like, yeah, so I'm going to get it up and get the pre-order. And I'm like, slow your roll.
Slow down.
Get the first book done as if you could publish it right now, and then start on the second book. And then when you're almost ready that you could publish the second book, then start thinking about pre-ordering the first book. I'm like, don't give yourself, 10,000 fire hoses of to-dos.
Yeah, that's good advice.
It can get overwhelming.
That's really good advice, because I mean, I think this was true when I was a new author. I was like, I finished the book. I'm so ready to publish it. But actually, the best thing you can do is just hold on to it and write the next one. And that's hard advice to hear when you have just spent, a year of your life writing your first book, or longer. I mean, I know some people take longer. That could be hard advice to take. But the best thing I did with the Aethon series, the Gun Files, all 3 books were done before we published the first one. And with this series, the first 2 books were done, plus the prequel novella was done. So yeah, the pre-order fear is real. Yes, it totally is. And honestly, like, I'm not really going to benefit from this pre-order. It was really just like, have it done. The book is done. The pre-order's ready. I have the link now. Like, it was just to get my ducks in a row. I wasn't expecting 3,000 pre-orders, like, I don't even care how many pre-orders there are. It doesn't matter to me. It was really just an administrative thing for me, because the launch that I'm focusing on is Kickstarter, and then the books will go up after that. But I hope that people buy through from book 1 to book 2, and that the book 2 pre-orders and book 3 pre-orders do really well. I'm going to really focus on that after this Kickstarter is over, is selling book 1 and getting book 2 pre-orders. So I've given myself enough time in my schedule that I feel super confident that book 2 is going to be done on time, so I can put up the pre-order. And when book 2 is ready, I'm going to be super confident that book 3 is going to be done on time, so I can put up the pre-order. I don't like this, playing with pre-order.
I'm still in draft mode, and I have the pre-order. Get it done in 10 days.
No. I know people that do that, but it's not for me.
Yeah. I also wanted to comment when you're first saying when book 1 is being launched, then book 2 and book 3, you have a lot of time in between those. Yeah. And I love that the indie sphere is moving more towards, less a book a week type thing. It's like, give yourself some space to really hone in on your advertising, on building your audience, and not driving yourself into the dirt to get the next book done.
Yeah. I definitely know people that have burnt out from putting themselves on too many deadlines, but I don't know. Maybe the industry is moving away from the, book a month sort of mentality. I'm not sure, but I know it's not for me. I just can't write that fast. I don't want to write that fast. I also have a full-time job, so it's just not something that's feasible. What's good for me is consistency.
Yep.
So for me, a book in October, another book in July, another book in like every 9 months, like, that's good. And I got way ahead of the curve, right? Like book 2's done pretty much. I just have some edits to make to the end. It's not going to be out till July. I'm going to sit on that thing for a while.
Make it quality.
Yeah. Shine it up nice and good.
Yeah.
So do you have any tips on how to do that work-life balance thing? If you've got, a full-time job, you've got a family, and you've got your writing career too. So how do you balance all that?
For me, I write early in the morning and on weekends. So weekends are writing days. And Patty Finn says, amen for moving away from the quick release madness. Thank you, sir. I agree with you. For me, I write early in the morning for like an hour or two, however much I can fit in. and I write on the weekends, and then I work like 8:30 to 5:30 at a marketing agency. It's fast-paced, difficult job. I manage a couple people. It's a great, fulfilling job. I do content strategy for my day job. So a lot of strategic thinking, but kind of a different muscle than writing. So for me, having something that's a different muscle, and I still do some writing at work, but I'm not like writing copy all day long. You know, I can write my words in the morning. I can get 1,000 words in the morning, go to work for 8 hours. I'm happy. And then I usually spend like as much time as possible on the weekend writing. If I can get a few thousand words on the weekend, that's what I try to do. So for me, it's like doing something different for work so that you have energy for writing and setting aside the time. Now, everybody's going to be different. I'm also the kind of person who is bored easy. So I like having multiple things. So even if I was full-time as an author, I would be doing other things. I would be, you know, maybe podcasting, or I would be writing nonfiction, or I would be writing multiple books at the same time. You know, I like having multiple things going on. It keeps my interest. It gives me something to jump to when I get burnout or tired or frustrated or stuck. You know, I can jump to another project. So I've always got, you know, an A and a B project going on. But, you know, since my A project is my day job, my B project is always one book. So I can't do like 2 books at once, right? It's too many. So I can do 1 book at a time, and I can do my job. So that's good.
And then how did you assemble your book production team? Like find your editor, find your Elias. Find your
Elias I
illustrator.
found on DeviantArt. So looking for artists where they are is a great recommendation. Like look on, you know, DeviantArt or the other like art sharing websites. Asking authors who did your cover, who do you use for editing? Editors, I've tried many editors over time. The ones that I love the most, I know personally, and I met them through other writers. So, for instance, I used to run a meetup group here in Austin called the Indie Author Society that was like weekly or bi-weekly talks for indie authors. And I met a ton of people in Austin that way. My editor, Steve, I met that way. And so that's what it is. But you just have to try people until you find somebody who's a good fit for you. The other thing is I've recruited beta readers and proofreaders from my audience. So from my email list and readers who've read my books. I have like an ARC team, you know, advanced reader copies I send out ahead of time. They leave reviews of my books, and, you know, they share with their friends, and they help me proofread. So those folks are amazing and incredible and super, super helpful. So for this book, I worked with a developmental editor early on, for just like story development. And then I worked with a copy editor, and then I had volunteer proofreaders. And then I went out and found the cover artists. And I like having control over my cover art too. Like I like being able to change it and modify it. And so I just made sure that, you know, I wasn't getting into a situation where I didn't have the source files.
I like how you're doing a lot of in-person connection, whether it's other authors you're meeting or people you're finding on your team, or like just getting that model spaceship done. You're going out to businesses and you're making those in-person connections. And I think it's making your project more special.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I really like that. Like one of the things that I've always loved about the internet is the ability to build community. So it's the thing that I really enjoy as part of the process, which is maybe why I love the Kickstarter process so much, because it's really building that community and rallying people around something that they enjoy. So that's really fun for me. Maybe it's not for everybody, you know, like maybe if that doesn't sound, if you're like, oh God, man, like that sounds terrible, I don't want to do that. Don't do it. But for me, it's really fun.
All right, we are winding down to the end of the hour. Is there anything when we invited you on that you definitely wanted to make sure got out there? It could be a plug, it could be a beware, it could, yeah. The floor is yours.
I mean, not really. We've talked a lot about the Kickstarter. I hope you guys go check it out. But if you don't, like, no pressure. I just hope this was helpful. And I hope you guys consider Kickstarter as another avenue, right? Like, I feel like there's this belief in the indie community that KU is the only way to go, and you have to write a book a month, and you have to write 5,000 words a day. Like, there are other ways to do this stuff. So, you know, I hope this is inspiring to other people and just helpful. Like, hope it was useful. Definitely suggest, if you are looking into a Kickstarter, go check out Dean's course. And there's a bunch of awesome campaigns. The best way to do research on Kickstarter is just go to their website and search for fiction campaigns. So you'll find plenty there.
And where else can people, because you've written other books, where else can people find those?
Sure. So you can go to mgherron.com. All my books are at mgherron.com, or you can join my email list. I'm on Facebook, mgherron, or Twitter at mgherron. So same place, almost all the social media networks that I actually use, but mgherron.com is the best spot.
All right. Well, y'all heard it here, out there in the live chat. Walt Robiard, Patricia Gillum, Corey Gillum, Bug Zero. I had to scroll down. Where are the people? Where are all the people at? Kate Beret, Kate Lolly. Thank y'all for coming. Join us, giving us your questions. MG Herron, thank you for spending your time with us and letting us pick your brain and gain all your knowledge, because that's what we do here at The Writer's Journey. We pick the brains of fellow authors.
Love it. Thanks for having me.
All right. For Lauren Moore, I am Kalene Williams. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, ding the little bell. Come join us on Facebook at Keystroke Medium, where you can get all of your writing advice. If you just want to like say hello, I'm lonely, we can be on there and be like, hey, you're not. We're here too. All right. Be sure to check us out next week. We're going to talk about more reading, writing, and everything in between right here on Keystroke Mediums.